Spring thing. Sorry, two-part question for each of the candidates. One is, do you know how many renters are in this ward or this riding? And two is, I recently heard about this move towards having landlords with licenses, and I'd really like to see that come through at City Hall so that we get rid of bad landlords and blah, 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 blah. So what would you do to support and advocate on behalf of renters in your ward? And the first part.
Thank you. We'll start with George this time.
That's an interesting question because we have many tenants who are in what we call illegal apartments, where people have bought homes, they've made basement apartments, they've rented them out, and the problem is the tenants have no rights, the landlord has total control, and that's a very big problem. I would say at the moment, as I've been going around the ward, I'm looking at 30 to 40% of the ward could be renters, but it's very difficult to find the exact number. We look at the figures, they're showing me 40%, but landlords and tenants have to work within a guideline where both are protected. There are tenants who skip rent payments and leave the landlord stuck with a big debt. We have landlords who basically forget about the tenant and leave them in the cold. So I would like to have a proactive bylaws and inspection of every area where the tenants are renting and every landlord, and to make sure that they have security as a landlord, to make sure that they are competent as a landlord and properly financed to take care of any problems that comes up between a tenant and landlord. Unfortunately, a lot of that also has to do with the province. So if we can go after the province to bring in legislation, I'm all for it, and the city has to enforce that.
Okay. Thank you. Joseph?
That's like 40 to 50% of the households in the ward, I believe, are tenants. Now the issue of tenants' rights is a question of people rights. That's why, for example, when the province, in terms of the CVA, Urban Value Assessment, its machinations result in a decrease in apartment buildings, the City of Toronto passed, and I supported the idea that we advise the tenants of a decrease in taxes when that occurs. I know most people get increases, including myself, but nevertheless, there's some of the apartment buildings that will decrease. And that's to make sure. We also have the municipal lighting standards to make sure that standards of accommodations are kept up. It's a bit of a stretch, a bit difficult, because, they can't get in anytime they want. You basically have to be let in, otherwise you have to get a court order to be let in for an apartment. You find something wrong there in terms of that. I don't support regulating landlords per se, because again, I think that the experience is that whenever you create bureaucracies, they simply cost a lot of money and don't necessarily get you where you want to go to. I'd rather the money be put in a healthier inspection system to make sure that people are living in appropriate accommodation, especially where there's a multi-tenant situation.
At my table there in the back, I actually have a tenant newsletter that's sitting there, and I advise and request everyone who wants more on this question to pick that up. I believe the quality of, or the kinds of tenants that are moving into this ward is changing the demographic of the ward. There's many students who can't afford to live east of Bathurst, so they're moving west of Bathurst. Suburban flight has become a round trip where families own a property down here. They live north of Steeles, and another family member is now coming back here, and they're renting other parts of their house. So the trend is definitely to increasing the residents would be tenants rather than landlords or homeowners. I pretty much don't have anything else to say. I pay rent. I'm a tenant. I know what it's like. My parents have been landlords around, and I've seen the abuse both ways. Roommates don't pay rent,